Welcome to the Talking Engagement podcast. I'm your host, Amy Berry, and in this episode I talk with Principal Chris Pyne from Faulconbridge Public School about their journey of changing the way they think about and support engagement within their school. In the 2025 New South Wales Public Education Awards, the school was presented with the Secretary's Award for Outstanding School Achievement in recognition of their efforts to better support learner engagement within their school. Since introducing this work, student belonging has grown from 39% to 71%, and the school culture has shifted from focusing on compliance and behaviour management to a shared vision for learner agency, connection, and meaningful engagement. And it's not just the teachers and students who are talking about engagement. The partnership approach has extended beyond the classroom to include families as well. This partnership approach has been fundamental to the success at Faulconbridge. Let's jump into the conversation and find out more. I'll start by saying welcome to the Talking Engagement podcast, and maybe you can tell us a little bit about yourself and your school.
So my name's Chris Pyne. I am principal of Faulconbridge Public School. Now that's a school in the west of Sydney, about an hour from the city of Sydney. We have 366 students, and living in the Blue Mountains, it's a very picturesque bush outlook. So we're very blessed to be to live and work on the land that we do. Yeah.
Great. And maybe we'll start by just talking about how your journey with this engagement work began. So what was happening at the school at the time that caused you to want to think about improving engagement, and how did you get started?
So this goes all the way back to it's really started with a conversation, but if you want to take it all the way back to where it really where we found the need. So when I started here 4 years ago, the school was in a pretty rough place. We had 60% of our staff had either left or gone elsewhere. So we had essentially a brand new staff. And listen, I take that as an opportunity as well, because with a brand new staff, you either you can mold them and you can shape them. But the kids really were the ones who were suffering in that. They were suffering in the ways that they no longer felt they no longer felt a connection or a sense of belonging to the school. So because all of their love teachers and teachers who they were going, oh, I'm going to go to year 6 next year and I'm going to have this teacher, or this teacher, suddenly all of that was taken away. So we had a really disengaged bunch who were lacking in and seeing the value in school, but seeing the sense of belonging. So when I started, it was at 39%. So we do surveys, and the survey said that 39% of the students felt that their sense of belonging was okay, which is rock bottom. Right. as you'd know, Amy. So, but since then, since building up the school over like a 2-year period, some other results, as the sense of belonging, they felt that they belonged in the school. What was happening was they were belonging, but they weren't engaging in the lessons. They weren't motivated in the lessons, and they weren't demonstrating their capacity as learners. So that really that was sort of the catalyst for the engagement cycle that we've been on. But in terms of it was an instructional round, which is like teachers going into classrooms and observing and things like that. But really, the teaching around that was in that in that engagement piece. And I had a principal going, oh, there's a really good book you got to read. And Amy, it was your book. And I went, oh, all right. So I started reading it, couldn't put it down. I literally have it right here. And so I needed to get something through to my staff that was easy to digest, and something that was really going to get that and really going to get that hook into those kids in the classroom. And so I loved your engagement continuum, and so I presented that to staff at the start of 2023. And I had all of these things planned for our staff development day, all of these massive things, and it all got railroaded. It all got railroaded, but I kept it in there because the discussion around this was just so brilliant. They started to come up with ideas, and what about this, and what about, well, that doesn't really make sense, because then if they're engaged in the classroom, then what's an effort scale? Because we send them, and so then there was this really rich discussion about, you know, how is that, how are we going to get that continuum and really contextualize it to our school? And so I was just sort of like, I felt like I was a bit of a passenger in the whole thing, which is the way to do things. But it sort of spawned from that first initial conversation, and beyond there, it's sort of taken a life of its own, where people are, we contextualize it for the school, and they contextualize it for their classrooms and how they teach and their pedagogy. That's probably been the most rewarding thing, is to see the different ways that the thought process of the school is manifesting itself in classrooms and with students as well.
I mean, I love that idea, and I wrote a blog post about it, that it all starts with a conversation. And I think it's such a simple idea, but such a powerful idea, because, it means that I'm not coming in with the agenda of telling you what to do and how to do it. I'm beginning, with my ears open and ready to listen. And as you say, happy for my plans to be railroaded. I guess because you understood that at the time they were ready to drive, right? They were excited, they were invested, they were ready to drive. So get out of their way and let them let them get on with it.
Absolutely. So, my executive director, which is essentially my boss's boss, said in a speech that he gave to the principals, he said, "Leadership is about being an elephant, big ears and small mouth."
Yeah.
And I've really taken that away, because I was like, no, don't say anything. Just let it, just hear it. And it also gives that ownership and that buy-in to the whole process, because, if you're I mean, gone are the days that we run schools or run organizations. I mean, some need to, but with the top down, everyone's on the same playing fields. We're all individuals. We all have our own ways of doing it in the classroom, but we need to come back to this one model, and that's what we've really created with our zones of engagement.
Yeah. So we're going to get into that in a minute, but I just want to back up just for a minute. So, you talked about this need to address a significant issue with your feelings of belonging. And I think that's an important point to make, that there are certain preconditions, that we need to attend to before we can even start thinking about getting them more engaged in the lesson. And so we have to have a feeling of trust and belonging if we're going to be able to, inspire them and support them to want to challenge themselves and stretch themselves and become drivers. And so I can hear that was essential work that you had to do at the start.
100%, it was about getting their hearts before getting their heads. It was about creating a space that they wanted to come to again, because, as if you go into a workplace, if you don't feel like you belong in that workplace, then going to work's tough. It's the same, and I think there's students, with the way that society's going, have sort of lost that sense of community outside of school to a certain extent. And so to bring it really, to bring it quite heavily and focus so heavily on it at school has paid dividends in in the relationships that we have, but also the results that we're getting,
Yeah.
academic results that we're getting at the end of the day.
And that's an important point too. We need to spend time, invest time around intentionally building relationships, building trust, and building that sense of belonging, not only for the children, but for the families, for the staff. Everybody needs to feel like they belong there, they're valued, and they can trust each other. But then you acknowledge that it's a necessary but insufficient step if we also want to improve learning outcomes. And so I guess my wondering is, what is it that you saw in your instructional rounds that flagged your attention to say, okay, we've got to a good place in terms of belonging, but there's more we could do in terms of their engagement in the learning that's happening within the lesson?
Yeah, so it was. I mean, the whole day was focused on learning and learning intentions and success criteria, and so having them involved in the creation certainly of the success criteria and how to be successful in the lesson. But it's sort of it. I mean, that was a crux of it, and really getting down into the nitty gritty of how to present it, how to keep referring to it, referring back to and creating that environment within your classroom. But yeah, we sort of went. We took a detour. We went this way to go that way,
Mm-hmm.
because we did see in survey results, while our belonging was going up, our motivation and the value of education was on the low side. So that was really something that we wanted to change. And so we
Mm-hmm.
thought about changing that from inside, and going, okay, well, they need to be engaged first before they can learn. So that was the process along the line of where we got to this engagement journey.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but in terms of their academic growth, we live in a fairly middle class affluent area. So their ability to have that as educational outcomes being reinforced at home is quite good. So
Yeah.
in that regard, we were underperforming as well. So there needed to be there was something missing.
Mm-hmm.
I think at the end
Mm-hmm.
of the day, Amy, there was something missing, and engagement was it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And so, in terms of the steps that you took beyond that initial professional learning day, where you started to look at the continuum, how did it evolve? How did it evolve from that point?
Okay. So, so we have four zones. So we wanted to tie the continuum into something which the students are already quite well aware of. So we wanted to tie it into the zones of regulation.
Mm-hmm.
So we, sort of, because the students were already well aware of, the zones of regulation and all that sort of thing. And we then tied it into that. But we have four, where your continuum has six, we have
Mm-hmm.
four. We contextualize it because our community is because we understand our community. I think that's really important, to understand your community. And we wanted this to go, we wanted it to go school wide and go big fairly early and fairly quickly.
Mm-hmm.
So we wanted to put it into school reports, so semesterly reports, and have that replace our effort scale.
Mm-hmm.
Because what we found as we moved through this engagement journey is, as we talked more about it, first it was, these are the steps towards engagement, bang, 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 bang. But then we went, well, how is that going to adapt to a student? How are they going to see themselves in this? And so then that, manifested itself into I can statements. And then we're like, okay, well, how can this be translated to home? So how can we build it? So yes, we build it at school, but how can we create that triad of, school, home, and student?
Mm-hmm.
How can we really get this language and this talk at home as well? And so we came up with I can statements, and we also took the last two of disrupting and avoiding. Because if we're going to put in reports, that's
Mm-hmm.
to tell a parent your your student is, and it wouldn't have gone down with our community. So we sort of adapted those last three and put them into withdrawing,
Yeah.
and then participating, investing, and driving, and massive focus on the investing and driving part, because at the end of the day, that's what we want.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
We
And I
want them
think, I mean,
investing and driving.
it's such an important, point that you're making here. One is about the need to contextualize this and make it meaningful for you, your community. Uh, it's not it's not going to be very good or powerful if you're just taking it and just putting it on people as is. You really need to spend time to bring it to life and make it meaningful and make it useful and workable for you. And different schools have done it, in different ways. So I love the idea that you immediately thought, well, how can we connect to something that is already going and familiar and working for us? And here we've got this zones of regulation. And people know what that is. We're familiar with I can statements. Let's use what we've got and build on that. And that's such a smart way to go. And I know in another school, and we'll be speaking to them on the podcast as well, Balmoral State High School in Queensland. One of their fundamental pieces of identity about themselves as a school is this idea of being innovators and really leaning into innovation. So they contextualize the continuum by
Taking notes, Amy.
adding an additional level beyond driving for innovating. And I just think, well, why not? As I said to them, because I think they were a bit sheepish to say, how's she going to feel about this? And I thought, well, I didn't have innovating in the continuum because the evidence that I gathered in my research didn't show that was a common thing that teachers or students talked about. It's not to say that it's not possible or it couldn't be. I just didn't have the evidence in my research for it. So why not, try to be aspirational and push the boundaries and think about the possibility of a different level. So I love all of that, and I think it is really sensible thinking about really focusing on these three different levels or zones of engaging, and then thinking about disengagement in whatever form it takes. It is essentially the person withdrawing from the learning experience and choosing to do something else, or withdrawing because they're having a hard time getting into it. But it is a pulling away from the learning. And so we can pairs about whether it takes the shape of avoiding or disrupting or just checking out. But at the end of the day, the important point is to understand that that person is having a hard time getting engaged. And so we need to come together and support them. So, it makes sense to me.
Yeah. And I had a lot of research. I read a lot of research around this engagement piece in the lead up to going to that and having your research being mentioned. And while that I'm not discounting any of the other research or indeed authors out there, but the benefit in your research is that I saw is that it was very usable. You could use that continuum that you had and mold and contextualize it. And obviously these guys in Queensland have gone beyond, and that's innovating. That's a really interesting. I think that's maybe a 2027 project for me. But in terms of having that model that makes sense, your model really made sense to me, and it appealed to me because it was right in front of you. It was and you could see it. There was a clear progression of the engagement levels, and it broke it down into that framework and that language, which connects easily to teachers. So that's a bit of kudos to you, because this that the you know, and I'm not the only one finding this stuff out. We got other schools. I presented to other schools around this engagement model, and it's very it's a lot of principals have taken it on board as well.
I mean, of course, I love hearing that because, I know people, I don't want to create something that just sits on the shelf and nobody can connect with. So I like doing research, but um, always my mind is thinking, that in that translation piece, how do we take what we know, have learned from research and do the heavy lifting so that um, educators and school leaders and people who are working in this space can pick it up and run with it, and make it their own. And so that, that's my job, is to do that kind of work to get it to that point. So to hear that it is landed, is motivating for me, because I think, okay, good, it was worth it. All that all that hard thinking. Uh, I'd like to know, from a leadership position, what have been the challenges in supporting teachers with this work?
Um, I'm going to sound the wrong guy to be speaking to about this, because I only had a positive a positive response to it, because I think everyone was at that same point. It had been pointed out that, and they were feeling it within their classroom. They were feeling those disconnected kids, and they were sort of wanting not a solution, but a strategy which they could utilize, or a pedagogical technique that they could utilize within their classroom. And that's what I tried to give them, but I gave them like 2 out of 10. They gave me the other 8. So
Mm.
they, in terms of buy-in, so I had teachers going away and making models that they put on desks, on the corner of everyone's desk. With goals. So this now went into goals. So we started with success criteria. Now it went into goal setting and engagement, rather than just goal setting and learning. So goal
Hmm.
setting in those 2 areas, and I think, and then you can give feedback on those 2 areas. You can feedback on that engagement. You really engage. I love the way that you did this task. I love the way that you even asked me about it.
Mm.
And then the academic side of feedback and goal setting as well. So it lent itself to that platform, and I've had teachers use it in all sorts of different ways. And I didn't really put too many reins on them,
Hmm.
because we had this idea. It was brand new, and I just let them go.
Mm.
And what they came back with were these massive, these ideas. Some people do it as a whole class. Some people do it for a lesson as a whole class. Some people do it individually on tables. Some people do it, keep referring back to it throughout the lesson. Um, However they wanted to engage with it, they were engaging with it. And our results, we have at some 81% sense of belonging now. So from 39%, now we're at 81% sense of belonging. That's such a massive shift,
Yeah,
especially
absolutely.
over a 4-year period, where shifts of anything greater than 5% is you're doing well,
Yeah,
or you're not doing
yeah.
so well.
And
So
what about
so
in terms of shifts in their motivation and engagement? Have you seen similar, well, maybe not similar, but improvements there as well?
it just added to the learning environment that was created. It really added to, so not only have our results improved, and our results been consistently improving, and I do, there's other factors, but I do attest a lot to our zones of engagement. Um, the what it created for our learning environment was that consistency across the school, and that school-wide consistency of,
Mm-hmm.
this is what we do. This is what we do at Faulconbridge. This is your parents have this at home. This is going home in your reports, and it created a real, it said, well, yeah, you either get on board or you don't.
Mm.
And we haven't had kickback, or negative talk from kids around it. So they really love it, and what they and the feedback that we're getting from parents is that they're coming home and they go, I want to be investing, I want to be driving. My teacher said that I was participating today, and then it gives them a clear structure in which they can follow and clear goals that they can set for themselves, because they can just go, well, I'm going to do this I can statement to get up to driving. So it's a very easy thing for them to do. It's that conversation between the parents and the students of, okay, well, what are you not doing in lessons, and what can you do in lessons? And really breaking it down to, not just at the end of a semester report.
Yeah, and I think, you've just highlighted something that I talk about a lot when I work with schools in terms of fundamental building blocks for taking the work forward. Three, there's only three, but we need to think about them all the time, and they are the pathway to success. One is around having this shared vision and shared language, which you talked about, beautifully. And it's a shared language amongst the staff. So we're all on the same page and we have the same idea about what we're trying to achieve, even though it might look different in different classrooms. We have that shared language with the children. And so that enables them to weigh in and have a voice and join in conversations about their engagement and their learning in a way that's meaningful. And now a language that also invites these conversations with parents and at home and, within families. And I'm imagining between teachers and parents. And, that's such a powerful thing, because it really is what's needed if we're going to tackle the second block, which is partnership. That this work has to be done in partnership. We cannot do it for children or to them. We have to be doing it with them. And even better if we can also be doing it in partnership with families and the wider community. And then the third one is about embedding it. And from the sound of it, this is what you saw as straight away. We have to contextualize this. We have to make it meaningful. We have to bring this to life in the classroom, in lessons. And so how are we going to do that? Well, one way is to connect with things that we're already doing and familiar with. So it's such a great example of a school that's tackling all of those fundamental building blocks and how this has led to success. Now, on the topic of success and impact, I cannot wait for you to share and offer my congratulations for the big success that you've had this year. So why don't you tell us about that exciting news that you got this year?
So I was told I'm just I just come to work and get it done. And I have these ideas and yeah, okay, let's run with it. But it was the first time that someone said, well, you should write to the department and tell them about what you're doing. And so I did. And it came back, and I nominated the school for Outstanding Achievement Award, and we were one of 20 schools across the state. Everyone, there's 2,200 schools across the state. So one of 20 that received that award. So we were able to go down to an award ceremony and really celebrate the achievements of our school in the area of engagement. And that not only that's awesome for staff, and it's great for morale and all that sort of stuff, but it was a real pat on the back moment, because you're going, okay, well, there are people acknowledging the fact that these awesome things are happening in schools, not only my school, but all the other 20 schools, and things that were nominated successful for those awards. And there are these cool things, and and I've had phone calls and people going, oh well, you want to come and give a talk at my school and things like that, and I'm like, well, I'm a busy man.
I'm running to school.
Got a school to run here. I'm all about sharing and all about spreading expertise and spreading what and sharing ideas. But it was a very good moment for my staff and a very good moment for my school as well, to be acknowledged on that stage.
Oh, I mean, I've no doubt the hard work and the effort that went into getting to that space. And so, to feel validated and acknowledged for that work
Mm,
and feel that sense of pride in what you've achieved through a lot of hard work is really motivating. It motivates us to keep going. If we're all human and we don't mind a bit of hard work and we don't
yeah,
mind um, doing things that are hard, but we need to be feeling some success. We need to be
of
feeling some
course.
progress and validation to keep going.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely, absolutely, and it really, I create a team here at Faulconbridge where at the start of every email that I write to my staff, I say hi team because we are a team. I come from a team background and did all sorts of things with sport, but creating that team is so very strong for me. And these ideas and these great ideas are based on your research and they come from having that really close staff connection.
Mm,
And my team and I, it was a moment more for my team than about me because
mm,
they essentially ran it. I
hmm
just had the big ears on.
Yeah, good. Well, not everybody has those big ears on, so that they are lucky to have you. And again, congratulations. That was
Thank you very
an
much.
amazing achievement, and I was just so excited to hear about it. I think I went to a Dean's Lecture series at Melbourne University a couple of months back, and John Hattie was the guest speaker on the night. And as you know, he was my PhD supervisor. So all of his former students, all gathered there and to listen to him speak. And one of the things that he talked about was that we need to get better within the education community of not just focusing and amplifying the bad news stories and the things that are wrong and the problems, but acknowledging and recognizing that there is a lot of excellence out there, and we need to get better at seeing that excellence, learning from it, celebrating it, and sharing it within the education community. So I think it's a good example of that. And I'm not surprised other schools are beating down your door and wanting to hear from you. I was in Queensland last week working with the department up there in the southeast region, and it was a whole group of school leaders and school supervisors. And overwhelmingly, when we asked the school leaders there, how could we better help you and support you in the changes that you're trying to create in your school in terms of engagement, overwhelmingly the response was, we want more connection with other schools. We want to hear from other schools and hear how they're doing it.
The office with your bag.
Absolutely.
The office with your bag.
Absolutely.
We're,
Sorry, it's the
we're in
life
a,
of a
we're
prince.
in an actual school, people. So this
It's
is how.
it's 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 the life of a principal. Sorry. Yeah, someone needed to come to the office with the bag.
Yep, that's important.
Yep.
Yeah, so that's what they want. And it makes sense. I want to see how other people are doing this. How are they getting started? How are they bringing this to life? What does it look like in a real school with real teachers and real kids? And so, I think that there's a hunger for that, which is again another reason why I wanted to do this podcast.
Yeah. And give license as well. License to know that, you can give things a go.
Yeah.
And if they fall flat on their face, they fall flat on their face. Like I will put my hands in the air and say, there's a couple of things that I've done in the school, and then I'm like, well, no, not going to do that next year.
Yes.
But you try. We're not perfect. We're all learning.
Yeah.
And I'm the lead learner at the school, as it says in my job description. Now, he didn't come over the phone, so he's out of the loudspeaker now. You know, but everyone just, it's about trying things, and it's about taking risks. We ask the kids to take risks all the time. It's written up there in my zones of engagement and in the investing and driving is take risks in your learning.
Mm,
Now, is it not important for us as leaders of
mm,
students to demonstrate that risk
yeah.
and to demonstrate risk taking?
Yeah.
Obviously, it's on a bigger scale, but I think that's a really important point that that you do try things and sometimes they do fail. And I
Yeah.
think that's a really it's a point that this generation is lacking in the ability to try something and fail and then move on from that,
Yeah. Yeah.
and build that resilience in and around being brave, really.
And I mean, it's interesting because I have had schools and school leaders in the past that have said to me, well, we have some staff that are really keen to get going, and they've got ideas and they want to rush out and they rush ahead and they already have making plans of what they're going to do tomorrow. Should we hold them back? And I always, um,
Mm.
get a bit taken aback by that attitude because, I mean, my thinking is why? Why would you want to stop somebody who is so motivated and so ready to take risks and try and forge ahead? And I guess the concern is that they might get it wrong or they'll make a mistake. But then I think, well, what are we teaching our kids then? If that if that's our approach that we're going to take to teachers, that you can't do it unless it's foolproof and you know 100% that it's going to work, then it's not sending a very good message to our children. We need to get out of the way and let them drive if they think they're ready to drive. Let them go and learn from them.
I mean, that's it. These modern kids, it's all about, it's all about experimenting and trying new ways to engage them and connect with them, because
Mm,
they are more disconnected. You look at social media, you look at all of those sort of things, which is meant to bring people closer together,
mm.
but as we know, has a negative has that negative effect of people being further apart. We had the big COVID,
Yeah.
in the middle there. So they're really lacking that connection. They're really and making that security behind what they do. So I think that being able to have that framework is really important.
And so do you see it, your work with the continuum, has that been a connector point that's brought people together as well, just around this work?
Yeah, it's something which has manifested itself in a whole bunch of areas. We're a PBL school, positive behaviour for learning, and we're pretty much scrapping that. We're still we're still PBL and we're still positive behaving, but it's sort of taking over a lot of the other preconceived ideas about. I mean, you talk to any school around here, they're all PBL schools, so safe,
Mhm.
respectful learning, that sort of thing. I don't think that's engaging with all of the students. I think it engages with some of the students, but it's not engaging with all of the students. So we needed that new way of dealing with it.
Mhm.
And so it's sort of got right down into there's the investing and driving, and then they're all the way down there in the learning pit, aren't they? And then
Yes.
and so we have a new strategy at Faulconbridge, which sort of spawned itself from zones of engagement, from that thinking around Faulconbridge grit. And
Mhm.
so and that obviously it's an acronym, um, but they that sort of amalgamates a whole new PDHPE syllabus. So it's it's sort of the thinking and the processes around engagement sort of take themselves into all of these other areas, and they touched on all these other areas of our school.
Mhm.
Suddenly we have this framework which we can build everything around,
Mm, mm.
and it's
Yeah.
it's 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 very, very exciting. So we don't we no longer have to pay for projects. Like we were part of a project that you had to pay for, and in and around resilience. But we looked at it and we went, well, we came up with the zones.
Mhm.
Why don't we come up with our own and not pay
Yeah.
for it? And
Yeah.
come up and then talk to teachers and talk to what they want. And so
Mhm.
that's a real cultural thing that we have here at the school, and and in no part in no small part do I think the zones of engagement have, and your continuum played a part in.
I love that because it means that you don't have to then go through the process of trying to connect in with what you're already, taking this new thing, this new idea and trying to bolt it in and connect it in because you're creating it. And so it already has meaning because you are creating it for what you need and based on where you are.
100%.
So what's your next step then? What are you currently working on at Faulconbridge?
Surviving until the end of the year.
Yeah, that's a fair answer.
It's the middle of week 6. But yeah, where are we on? Well, we've gone into a new excellence cycle at the school. So grid is going to become a massive part of it. Zones ties itself so well into HPGE, high potential gifted education. Wow, that is so that little journey is going to be the next one. How do I tie the learning and the mind frame around identifying and nurturing these high potential gifted education students through the lens of the zones of engagement.
Right.
That's why I get paid the big bucks, Amy. So to come up with ideas and
big ideas.
But that's our big focus. Our big focus for next year is the explicit teach and everything that encompasses and driving that HPGE, that high potential.
Yeah, and I think most schools that I talk to, I think the message is clear. This is ongoing work and it evolves over time. And so it's not a one and done kind of thing or, we're going to do that in term 1 and then that's it. We don't need to do anymore. It is something that just evolves and grows and takes on a life of its own, which is, great.
And you have these moments where you talk to people like yourselves, and in this very moment, I'm tying in. How do I tie in innovating into that HPG framework? And I reckon it ties really well too.
Yeah.
So there might be a fifth zone of engagement coming up.
Who knows?
Watch this
and I
space.
think that's the thing. It evolves because the community is doing it together and sticking together. And so your capacity to go deeper and take on more and expand is there because you're moving together with this work. So I think, yes, I look forward to following the journey and seeing where that goes. Now, before we end, I would like to end with your top tips for other people who are either just starting out with this work or thinking about starting out.
I've got one.
Okay.
It's pretty much trust the people that you have around you. Mm-hmm. Put trust in your staff. If you give them that little 1%, if you give 2 out of 10, they'll give you 8 out of 10. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So what you put in and the amount of trust that you have in your staff to come up with these ideas is it will lead you in places which you didn't think that you were going to go in, and be flexible and be adaptable and be innovating in your leadership, because that's how you get the best results. You get the best results for the people around you.
Great advice. And I think we can encourage teachers to think in the same way. Trust in the people around you, trust in the capacity of what your students can do and can cope with, and also be willing to take on their suggestions and advice, see them as partners in this work.
Yeah.
And amazing things might happen there as well.
Absolutely. So you've got to have trust in your teachers, but also trust in your students. Yeah, you're spot on. Spot on.
Well, Chris, it has been amazing as always. I look forward to having you on again later. Maybe this time next year we'll check in again. But congratulations again.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Amy, and thanks for the opportunity.
Okay, thank you. Bye.
Bye.